I'm Tom Calkenny.
I'm Carol Paling, and this is Upfront.
Tonight, find out why this man's trip to the movies turned out to be a horror show.
So I said, well, officer, if you remove me, you're going to have to remove all these people, too.
You may think twice about bringing your own popcorn. Thousands of former Soviet citizens are pouring into the Bay State, looking for new lives. From Russia, with hope.
My specialty has been taking companies that were bankrupt, closed, or losing millions of dollars and turning them around.
Maury Taylor has the resume, but will voters put a businessman in the White House? Now, here's Tom and Carl.
Welcome to Upfront. A lot of people complain about the high price of popcorn at the movies, but few of us are doing anything about it.
Tonight, we have a story of a New Hampshire man who thought he was buying a seat at the movies. It turned out to be a ticket to trouble.
But this is not the usual crime.
Well, this is the infamous bag of popcorn.
This is not the usual motive.
I can see glass or something like that, maybe. But as far as bringing your own candy bar or licorice or even soda in the can, I don't know what's wrong with that.
You've got to look beyond the usual suspects.
So I said, well, officer, if you remove me, you're going to have to remove all these people, too.
But Kurt Lapine was the only one who got the boot from the Premier 8 Theater in Merrimack. He planned to see this movie called The Usual Suspects, a suspense thriller about 5 felons who meet in a lineup. They join forces for an even bigger job, all the time shadowed by a supernatural criminal. Trying to make sense of it all, a frantic U.S. Customs agent.
So between all these elements, it's an incredible story.
The movie is filled with twists and turns, but they're not half as strange as the situation Kurt Lapine found himself in.
I was charged with simple assault, criminal trespass, resisting arrest, disorderly conduct. You might think that I broke in with a machine gun or something. I brought some popcorn in a Filene's bag. A Filene's bag which you can't see through. And I paid for the ticket, and I walked through the doors, and this person came up to me and put his hands on me and says, "You can't come in."
That person turned out to be the theater manager. Despite repeated attempts to interview him, he had no comment about his run-in with Lapine.
So I pushed his hands away from me, and I walked through, and he says, "I'm going to call the police." And I says, "You can call anybody you want to."
A Merrimack police officer arrived shortly afterwards. The manager's version of what had happened was different. This is where the plot thickens. Merrimack Deputy Police Chief William Mulligan.
The manager relayed to him that an individual had entered their establishment and had been asked to leave. He was offered a refund. At that time, the manager reported that he was physically pushed aside.
Mulligan says the manager decided criminal charges wouldn't be necessary if Lapine left quietly.
I'm giving you one last chance to call this off.
The movie's supposed to start about 9:20, and about 9:25, everybody's getting edgy, you know. They're waiting for the movie to start, and the doors open up, and Officer Trepany of the Merrimack Police Department comes in, and he starts bounding down the aisle. So I turned around and I addressed the crowd. I says, "Okay, folks, who here has brought something they didn't pay for?" And about 1 out of every 5 people raise their hands, and they're showing, you know, popcorn and stuff.
But at this point, Chief Mulligan says the issue wasn't about popcorn, but rather whether an assault had occurred. And under New Hampshire law, movie theaters can prevent you from bringing in your own food. They have a pretty large sign right up here by the ticket booth saying no food or drink inside. Was that sign there when you bought your ticket on the 15th?
I don't recall it.
He doesn't know what you want to know.
I don't think he does. Not exactly. But there's a lot more to his story, believe me.
In fact, the sign was there the night Lapine bought his ticket. And it wasn't the first time the manager had spoken to him about bringing food into the theater.
I want to know why.
The popcorn in this movie is usually stale. It costs $3.50 for some pop kernels, and it's cold. And I like the cheese popcorn from Shaw's.
This isn't right.
Do you always bring in your own popcorn when you see movies?
No, occasionally I buy.
But the theater and the police aren't buying his actions.
The officer entered the theater and made at least 2 requests for the individual to leave the movie theater. In the officer's opinion, the individual's actions were disorderly, and he subsequently arrested the individual for the assault. And when he attempted to remove the subject in handcuffs, the subject planted his feet and refused to leave the theater.
That guy is tense. Tension is a killer.
What was the reaction of the people who were sitting in the theater when you got hauled
They
out?
couldn't believe it.
Lapine claims the officer handled him too roughly on the way out and has filed a complaint. The chief stands by his officer, but Merrimack takes such complaints seriously, and they're looking into the matter. Lapine is also looking for witnesses. To find them, he took out this unusual ad in the local newspaper. What do people in town think of your ad?
It seems to be, when I'm talking to a person and I mention it, and it says, "Oh, you're the one, huh?"
But so far, only one witness has replied. Lapine is also banned from the Premiere 8, which is fine with him. He goes to other theaters and brings his own popcorn, he says, without incident.
He's here.
In The Usual Suspects, one of the felons beats the rap. But if Kurt Lapine is found guilty of the charges against him, some might say that's because
He didn't have my lawyer.
Kurt Lapine's trial is set for December 5th. He says he's looking forward to it.
Coming up, if you landed in a strange country, how would you get by? That's what Russians are asking as they poured into Boston looking for a fresh start.